Chitre is with me. Good buddy from back in the day. Amit was a reporter at News 8 eons ago. There wasn't that long ago a time where I was your photographer and you're the reporter,
Right.
and we're going out to cover, school meetings and accidents and whatever it was. But you have since moved on. You're now an author, which is incredible. Before we get into the book here, let's first give everybody at home kind of your career background. Like I said, you were a reporter a number of years ago. We will not mention.
We can do the math if you'd like.
Go ahead if you want.
2002 when I left here. So that's 23 years ago. And you were just starting off on the sports anchor desk. So we have co-anchored the weekend show together, Thad.
I don't remember that, but I know it had to have happened. Yes. Good times for sure. But all right, since then, in the last 23 years, kind of the quick
Career
summation,
arc,
where you've gone to end up where you are now.
So I spent some time in PR at an agency. I spent some time at national nonprofits with the American Heart Association, and I've also launched my own communications consultancy. So over the past couple of decades, spent a lot of time in public relations, media relations, crisis communications, and that's really given me this breadth of experience, which you could put under one big umbrella of helping people tell their story, right? Figuring out the right thing to communicate at the right time.
So you have a number of kids of your own who've played a lot of sports.
Yeah.
3 kids, right?
3 boys, all play sports. 2 play sports in college, 1 in high school. So, yeah.
So you've been doing this, 15 years of going to practices?
Oh, yeah.
Dealing with coaches, dealing with, kids up and downs when it comes to I'm getting playing time, I'm not getting playing time, all that stuff?
Right, and coaching myself. I spent a lot of time coaching my kids as they were younger. I spent a lot of time on the Victor Travel basketball board. So I'm really involved with, kids and sports and the sports community.
So here's the book. It's called The Other Playbook, Brand Lessons That Every Student Athlete Needs, but no one ever teaches. So what was the moment for you with all those years, not only in what you do professionally, but dealing with the kids, dealing with the sports, all the things they go through? What was the moment that made you think that this was something that either you wanted to do or something that was needed when it came to the sports world?
Just watching my kids go through their experience, I noticed a gap, right? So let's back up a little bit and just think about the pressures that student athletes face, especially in high school. You've got the pressure to perform. For many of them, the pressure to play at the next level. You've got academic pressure, peer pressure, family pressure. Many of them work as well. So that's a lot on high school student athletes, maybe more than ever before. And we haven't even talked about social media and that whole thing. So with all that pressure, unfortunately, student athletes sometimes make bad decisions. I mean, it's bound to happen. And when it happens, the families, the parents, and oftentimes the district is left kind of scrambling and dealing with the fallout when they should be focusing on more positive stories. So I thought about, how do districts typically try to address this? Well, they talk about their own values, right? And I know you have a kid that played sports. When you register them for high school sports, you always have to fill out all these waivers, and then there's something about behavior and values that you have to click accept.
The agreement, basically, with the coaches.
It's the cell phone agreement, right? You scroll through and then you click I accept at the bottom.
Yes.
How many people actually read that? And more specifically, how many students actually read that or retain it? And so I thought about it. The kids are told so many times that these are the values. This is what you must do. This is how you must behave. This is what you must follow. But there was no path for them to have any type of ownership to decide, this is what I want to stand for. And so that was the gap that I noticed. And so the Other Playbook, what it does is it gives students an opportunity to decide, what are the values that they want to stand for? What are the behaviors that they can use to drive those values so that other people see them as the best version of themselves?
Real quick, what kind of writing experience did you have prior to this? I mean, this is your first book, correct?
It's my first book, and I've never written a book before, but I do a lot of writing, just in communications through PR, internal, external communications. And so that's, I guess, the extent of my writing experience, but never written a book before. But again, a lot of experience dealing with my kids and coaches from all sides of it.
When you look at this book online and what it's about, one of the things that sticks out is that the guidance that you're offering is kind of based on a corporate experience, the world of corporations.
Yeah.
Why is that the approach that you think works for 14, 15, 16-year-old kids?
Well, so I'm glad you asked that. So the genesis of the book, really started from a corporate training that I'd given for many years. And the basis of the training was every person's a product. I encourage people to think of, I mean, you're no different than a cell phone or a can of Coke. These companies spend hundreds of millions of dollars to make sure you feel a certain way when you engage with their product. It's not by accident. And so you have to think of yourself as a product, understand you have customers making judgments about you, and be deliberate in how you want them to feel about you. That's the corporate training. You know, I also do a lot of work in crisis communication, so I look at this through a crisis communications lens for school districts, not just at the high school level, but think of the college level for NCAA athletics. Every time there's a major scandal, that's a black eye for the college, the institution, and they're left scrambling, dealing with the fallout. Right now, the NCAA is investigating, I think it's 12 players across 6 universities on a gambling scandal. You hear about academic integrity issues, criminal activity, maybe violence, sexual violence. Every time something like that happens, it's a black eye for the institution. But here's an opportunity for them from a risk mitigation standpoint to engage those students early on and have them have some ownership about, again, the values that they want to stand for. If they are actively involved in developing those things, it significantly reduces the risk for the college or university. So, I looked at it through my crisis communications lens, the corporate lens. But one day I was giving that training to an organization, and the night before, I wanted to run through it just one more time in front of a live audience. So I sat my boys down and said, hey, kids, listen to this. And as I was practicing, it occurred to me, why are we waiting until people are career professionals to teach them these skills? These are really life skills that student athletes could benefit from. And so that was really the spark that got me to write the book geared towards student athletes.
How much of this, you talk about the kids being products, how difficult is it to get people to embrace that? Because it really sounds off-putting in the arena of youth sports, high school sports, which is innocence, which is, people having fun. When you think of someone as a product, that gets very professional, business-like, and those two worlds don't seem to collide very easily.
Yeah, a lot of people are very cynical about it. Like, we're not products, we're kids, we want to have fun, and I get that. I don't want to take the fun out of it, but the point of thinking of yourself as a product is really to demonstrate that everyone is making some judgments about you. You have some customers, and just as you feel a certain way about a product, people will feel a certain way when they engage with you. So don't give them the chance to define you. Be deliberate about what you want to stand for. Take steps to drive those values so that you don't have to tell someone, I'm a leader, or I'm a good teammate, or I'm a good writer, or I'm creative. The behaviors you exhibit will lead them to that conclusion. Don't leave it to chance.
You talk about crisis management and being able to navigate those waters, but you also have an example that you provided. I think it was on a Facebook discussion. When you talk about crisis management, you mentioned, criminal things, the type of scandals that most people sitting here listening will think, I'll never do anything like that. I'm not a criminal. I'm not going to. But you brought up the Jalen Carter spitting incident from the opening NFL game of the season this year. And that is not someone who's going to jail. That is someone who had a heat of the moment, poor piece of judgment. And how does that, very understandable and something that easily could happen to anyone, how does that figure into what you want to teach people in terms of being able to manage those moments?
So always go back to understanding what your values are, right? If you have a process to define what your values are, if you think about it, if you're intentional about it, you're far less likely to get caught up in those heat of the moment type activities. You'll want to be more true to yourself. And Jalen Carter, I've never met him. I don't know him, but I do know his draft stock dropped because of some behavior issues in college. That potentially could have cost him a lot of money, right? And again, everyone loves a redemption story. Just because he made a mistake or two doesn't mean that's the person he's going to be. He always has an opportunity to change his behavior. But we need to think about these things. We need to think about what are the things we stand for. And if we do and take time to define that, we're far less likely to get caught up in the moment.
You said you've got 3 kids who've gone through most of the youth and scholastic sports experience. What do they think of this book?
So it's funny. My older 2, they're in college. They read it. They liked it. They practice a lot of the things that we talk about. My younger one's still in high school. He's a 10th grader. And, he's kind of reluctantly reading it along. And so I said, all right, come on, let's get on the horn. Let's read this. So I've started going through it with him. And that's been eye-opening for me. So rather than leave it to him to read, I go through each chapter with them. And the way the book is written, every chapter is a lesson. You can write in the book, so it's kind of a workbook. And as you go through it, you come up with your own brand values, behaviors, and plans. And so after each chapter, I discuss with them, well, why did you come up with this? Why did you prioritize one thing over the other? And it's led to some really interesting discussions, which I think is really how it's meant to be used for high school students. For them to go through it with a parent or a coach or a mentor, help them think about things in a different way. It's been great conversation with my kids.
You've brought it up with your kids, and even the title of the book says brand lessons every student athlete needs. How much of this, though, is for the parents too, to understand the waters their kids are probably about to navigate, especially if they're, right where your youngest son is at ninth, 10th grade?
There are a couple of ways to look at it. First of all, parents need to look at this as well. People in corporate America need to look at this as well. Everyone needs to understand you're always being judged or reviewed, especially in the social media age where any moment can turn viral. You talked about the Milwaukee Brewers. Wasn't there just an incident with a fan at the Milwaukee Brewers game? I know one of these playoff games where she made a comment and it's gone viral.
I didn't see that at all.
Okay,
I can't say.
Yeah,
it didn't happen. I just haven't seen it. Yeah.
So everyone needs to be really aware about how you're being perceived. For student athletes, it's really important because think about the customers, so to speak, that they're going to have in their life over the next few years. Of course, you've got your coaches and your teammates who you want to perform well for, but your parents and family members. You may have admissions officers, scouts, recruiters, potential employers, your community members, church members, fans. Now in the world of NIL, that's a whole new sponsors. And so parents need to realize that these kids are under a lot of pressure. They have a lot of different variables coming at them. And going through this book with them will help ground them in their own values, right? Take the time now rather than when you're in a crisis, but take the time now to think about what's the person that I want to be, not just on the field, but on the field and off the field. Because for every student athlete, for every athlete, that athletic career ends at some point, right? You stop playing, whether it's after professional career, college career, high school. And when that sport ends, who's the person you want to be? And so it's a great time now to think about what those values are, have those conversations with your kid, and then show your kid, well, these are the steps you can take to be that person.
It sounds like this is, and I know I'm going to point out why this is not what it is, but to a degree, it sounds like this is almost a how-to to land that top scholarship, to land that NIL. But really what you want this to be is more about just gathering a scholarship. In other words, cashing in on that athletic ability.
What I really want it to be is how do you build the best version of yourself to be successful in sports, school, and life? So don't look at this as a guide to, I'm going to land that scholarship or I'm going to get that NIL deal. It's really building the best version of you. Student athletes will have a clear understanding of who they are and what they represent, and that's going to help create for them a stronger team culture, fewer distractions, positive school reputation, and it's going to help them not just play better in sports, but they'll become better teammates, better leaders, and better representatives of their school.
Do kids do a better job of understanding what's going on in this book from the point of view of when you have to be a brand or when you're trying to manage that? There are so many different ways people view you now. 20 years ago, a kid was viewed by, let me see what they look like on tape, and that was it. Now there's your Instagram page, your X page, your Snapchat, what people who are on all those social medias then say about you. There are so many different windows into a student athlete these days. Do the kids do a better job of understanding the need or even how to manage it than maybe the parents do because of the generational gap between making use of social media these days?
I would say yes and no. I think they have a better understanding of all that's out there. I mean, I probably won't even know half the social media channels that a lot of the kids of this generation do. So they have a better understanding of all of the different ways they're being viewed. But I don't think they make a distinction between the different customers and how they're viewing them. And I'll give you an example. You'll find a player that will do something that they think is funny, or they'll post on social media because their teammates will think it's funny or clever. But they won't think about how a potential coach or a potential employer or scout might see that. And those people are looking. So I think they have an understanding in some ways, but I think there's still a lot of lack of understanding in other ways.
How much should, or how much do you want school districts to get involved in making use of this book and the lessons involved? Because most of the conversation we've had so far has been primarily athletes, parents to a lesser degree, but clearly there seem to be some advantages and benefits to administrators, athletic directors, even coaches to trying to use some of the lessons in this book.
Absolutely. I think there are a couple of ways to look at it. I mean, the student athletes are the end user, they're the audience. But for parents, a great activity to go through with your child, especially for the high school students. For the high schools themselves, the districts and the athletic directors, it's a great way to build team culture. And again, for those schools where we say, these are the district values, this is how you should behave, this book is a great way to engage the student themselves and have them take some ownership and be part of that process of what their values are and how that aligns with the district. So it can help the team, help the district, if coaches want to use this, especially during the off season. I know a lot of coaches are looking for activities to do with their teams during the off season. Read a chapter at a time, come together, let's discuss for 15 minutes. That's something that can really be a great team building activity. And then for the colleges, absolutely. I mean, we talked about this at the college level from a risk mitigation standpoint. If there's an opportunity for colleges to engage students proactively before they even set foot on campus and think about what are the brand values I want to stand for, how do I drive those brand values? And then once they get on campus, have the coaches re-engage them with, okay, let's talk about this chapter for 15 minutes before practice. Then you're going to significantly reduce your risk and see a reduction in some of those off-field behaviors that tend to cause problems.
What's been the reception so far? You talk about your involvement in Victor Sports and how heavily involved you are, not just as a parent. What has been the reception from kids, from coaches, from parents that you've brought this book to? I don't want like a sales number, but just the almost word of mouth stuff in terms of how effective these lessons have been so far.
So it's been very positive, and the main reason why is because it is interactive. It gives students a chance to be part of the process, and there's nothing like that I've seen out there. So the athletic directors have been really positive, great to work with, very inviting. I've been meeting with several of them around Section 5. I've started to line up a couple of meetings with athletic directors at the college level, but the parents are the ones that surprised me the most, because when I wrote this book, I really intended it for the students, and I thought I'd be going through the high schools and the colleges. But the parents are the ones who said, kind of similar to my own experience of, boy, this was actually interesting to go through with my kid. It really led to some great conversations I didn't expect.
What has been the target audience? Not necessarily the parent, but like the age kid. Does this work for 10 and 11-year-olds? Do you save it for junior high? Do you save it for upperclassmen in high school? Where do you think is the wheelhouse for where these lessons can be the most effective?
It really is high school and college student athletes. I think when you get to the modified level, it's a little complicated for them. It might be a little too soon. So high school and college student athletes. And again, my youngest is a sophomore in high school. I'm going through it with him, and it's been a great experience.
What are your goals? What do you hope comes of this book? Again, I imagine sales are part of it, but separate of that, what kind of an impact do you hope this makes on the Section 5 athletic community and beyond as far as it'll go?
Well, so it's interesting being so involved in youth sports, especially in Victor. You get to see and meet a lot of students, and you feel proud when you see a kid you've coached through fourth grade, make it through and play on at the next level and do well. At the same time, it hurts when they make a silly mistake that you see cost them. And so I just see this book as a tool that really can help students find the best version of themselves. Again, not just in sports, but in school and life. And I think if students read this and can pick out a little of those tidbits and define their brand values, and it helps them at some stage in life, as a parent and as a former volunteer coach, that makes me really happy.
How much can you think in terms of tangible benefits? We talked about that this is not a book primarily as a driver to get a scholarship, but when you want to say to someone, hey, you go through this book and you're going to end up with this, or this is going to happen, as tangible as you can make it, what are some of the things that if you want to say, why should you buy it? This is the answer.
Well, again, I go back to, the conversation we had around being a product, right? So companies, they spend so much money to make sure you feel a certain way when you engage with them, right? So we have to think about that ourselves. So the tangible benefit is you will have a clear understanding of who you are and who you want to be and how to get there. And it sounds, kind of pie in the sky, but that really is a tangible benefit. I've seen the result when I've given the corporate training, coming back to companies after I've given the training, people saying, boy, this has really helped me because I thought I was being this, but until I went through the process of defining my brand values and thinking about my behaviors, now I realize I wasn't really projecting that. Well, I should be doing this instead. And so that tangible benefit is really defining and becoming the best version of you.
Is it surprising that the corporate world and the athletic world marry so easily in this way?
No, because we think about corporate lessons from sports all the time. When I do corporate trainings, I'm always using sports analogies. When we talk about sports, we often bring in lessons from business. So the two really go hand in hand.
How much fun has this been for you? To me, when I think about writing a book, I think of this is the kind of chore I feel like I'm in 12th grade again, and I have an essay that's due tomorrow that I haven't started yet. That's what it feels like to me. What was it like for you to go through this process?
It really was a passion project because it combines all the things I enjoy doing, right? The communication side of my career we talked about, and that's always been fun. But the coaching, the youth sports, going through the process with my kids, I've really enjoyed it. When I say passion project, it really has been a passion project.
That's awesome. Tell people where you can find the book.
You can go on Amazon. Actually, just recently got certified as an Amazon bestseller, so you can see that seal right there. And I'm really excited about that. If you go on Amazon and search The Other Playbook, you could find it. You could also visit my website at theotherplaybook.pro.
That's awesome. Amit, thanks very much for joining us, man. It's great to see you.
Great seeing you too.
Do you miss the news side at all? Do you miss the news business at all?
I miss this. This has been great hanging out with you, Thad.
Really cool to have you in, man. I appreciate it. So please, everybody go out there and find the book. Are you going to do any in-person? Does this eventually turn into Amit going around to high schools and maybe doing an in-person seminar with this kind of thing?
Yeah, I've talked to athletic directors about that as well. And when we talk about ways we can incorporate the book, I would love to come out and talk to their coaches as well. So yeah, absolutely.
And that's primarily what you've been doing too. I mean, not necessarily always in person, but it's certainly on the corporate side to a degree.
Absolutely. Yep.